Yeah, we can't hear you much at all now, Zach. It's going brilliantly.
Oh no!
Mike's gone completely. Hello, everybody. I tell you what, you move your lips and I'll talk for you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Welcome to the silent movie edition of Disability Horizons TV.
No.
With our host up there, Lon Chaney Jr. Yes.
Hang on. There's something.
No mistakes, I thought, tonight. We're going to go for it.
Can hear you.
Vaguely. It's very quiet, but we can now hear you.
But
I think your mic's come unplugged. Right, folks. This we always laugh, don't we, that we're doing things professionally, and of course, what we've done today is move it on a bit. Just today, when we're joined by our wonderful guest Sam Renke, of course, Miss Professionalism here, who in no way was still online shopping just 30 seconds before we went.
I still am online shopping. I've got distracted. Sorry.
Now, the reason why, Sam, tell us why you are blacked out.
Because you're not paying me any money, and for me to actually make myself presentable on a Sunday.
Of course, yes, I should have known. It takes the army of hangers on and clingers on makeup and hair and all that.
No. In all honesty, I've got a bit of a dodgy elbow. It's like an old fracture that just can be a bit of a poop face now and again. So it's just a bit cracked, and I just thought I could not be bothered to wash my hair or put a bra on or even knickers. So I am sat here naked. No, I'm joking. I do have something on. But yeah, I just thought I just don't want to scare anyone tuning in today, to be quite honest.
Well,
So
We're back now.
Well, the reason we can't pay you, Sam, is because all the money goes on beer products.
What was that, Dad?
I said we can't pay you because all the money goes on sex beer products.
I know. I can clearly tell.
So I'm back, and I don't know what the hell is going on. I was going to be so with it tonight.
We can now actually hear him. The best bit is it's Zek's show today. So when so we've got Sam who's in sound only, Zek who's in picture only. It's going to be one of those nights, folks. And what's so annoying is we're talking. Yes, we can do it all by interpretive dance, disability, hate crime.
Anyway. Let's start. We've started. Let's just ignore the beginning bit. We're here to
cut that bit. Cut that bit. This bit never happened. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Me, myself, Mik and Dan are joined by Samantha Renke, who has already explained sins as I sort of disappeared. But she says she's broken her elbow and she's not looking respectable. The truth is she's online shopping and can't really be bothered to look at
You'll never know. No, I think that's the truth, isn't it? You'll never know. Keep you guessing.
Unfortunately, we're talking about a topic that has to be discussed. It's a horrible topic. It's a topic that, from what we've been chatting about before the show, most people have been subject to in the most horrific ways. And, you know, we want to hear your comments because looking back on BBC News, doing a search, there's years and years of articles and nothing ever changes. So I'm gonna slot Mik into prime position, and he's gonna give us his take and his experiences on disability hate. Although who could hate Mik? I don't know.
Well, most people could if they really wanted to. I didn't want to hog the show again because let's face it, it's me. I can't shut up. But I will say that I have had a few more extreme experiences of this. I think we've all had that, being shouted at and people being a bit weird and aggressive and people calling you names and all that kind of stuff. And that, as far, like I was born disabled, so I had it at school, and kind of learned quite early on to sort of how to resist the bullies and all that kind of stuff. But then as you get older, it got a bit more scary. And a couple of experiences. I was once attacked in Camden Tube Station, where someone came up behind me with a knife, and apparently what it was their friend had just had his legs cut off because he was an alcoholic and was upset that I was seemingly confident in my wheelchair. So he thought he'd try and kill me. Unfortunately, he didn't realise that I had a sharpened footplate on, those old footplates that used to come off wheelchairs when you had the ones that folded off. Well, I'd sharpened one for attacking reasons. And so I fought back, and it didn't end well for him. The funniest bit was, while this was happening, 2 policemen were walking by, and I was thinking, yes, me and my friend with the knife to my throat are having a great time. Thanks, officer. And then later on, I mean, this was really scary. When I was doing telly and everything, and I had a car accident, and I broke my back, so I got quite ill again. And so I stopped doing telly. I was quite ill. And during this time, I was living in Shepherd's Bush in under the housing association Habingteg, and a gang of local youths decided that, hey, all these cripples are living in that place, so we can use their car park to sell drugs, and they won't be able to do nothing. And so they moved in, and it got, you know, I wasn't sleeping much because of the pain. So when I did sleep, last thing I needed was drug dealing at a full volume. The worst drug dealers in the world. Do you want to buy some drugs? Yes, I want to buy some drugs. All right, guys. So Di went out to ask them to just keep it down a bit, and it all descended from there until she got beaten up. I got beaten up. We got knives pulled on us. One night I went out because they were attacking her, start naked. And one of them came up behind me and grabbed me and kicked me out of my chair. And then the worst one was just towards the end. We kept asking the police to do something. They wouldn't do anything. Habingteg wouldn't do anything. No one did anything. We were on our own. And then one night, Di went out, and 3 of them were hiding, and they were all masked up, and they beat the crap out of her. I mean, really, to the floor. And I came out, and they all just like laughed and ran off. And then they were going, "We're going to pour petrol through your letterbox and burn you all to death." And so we packed up and fucking ran away, and just ran and left my lovely adapted flat with its garden and everything, and just went sod it and left, and kind of spent 4 or 5 years rebuilding our lives. And I think the thing is that what it taught me was, one, you go to people and you go, oh, they started off with just name calling and sort of lightweight stuff, and like, you know, they'd smash a wing mirror off my car and go, it's all right, you get it for free, didn't you, and all that kind of stuff. But when it's not nipped in the bud, then it escalates. And so that's, you know, it's why I think it's so important to talk about it, because lots of people will experience that hostility, that aggression, that weirdness from the public about language, about those little things. But if we're not going to stop that, then it will escalate. And I know loads of people who have really nightmarish experiences with neighbours and people grassing them up for benefit fraud when they're legitimately claiming, you know. And so it's why we have to talk about it, and why we ask you, dear viewers, to join in. Tell us your experiences. I don't think any of us are going to have any great ideas at the end about how to, you know, our top tips are going to be a bit crap. But other than make sure you have lots of small video cameras, because that's really handy to get evidence. But yeah, it was terrifying. And the other thing, of course, people don't really talk about is the effect afterwards. You know, and it's funny, just before we went live, weren't we, Sam? We were talking about, you know, that you're finding it really weird. You know, Sam, you know, no one would say Sam lacking in confidence. She's fine. But, you know, it's not. It crushes all of us, because it's something, you know, when you see it bad, it just freaks you out completely. And I know I had a
body-worn camera when I go out. I've got a body-worn camera on. Yeah, I'm lucky. I've got one for review, like one of these proper security body-worn cameras. I feel safer with it on.
But doesn't it strike us weird that we now live in a situation where, in order for you just to go out, you have to wear a camera? Do you see what I mean? In a society like this, in order for you just to leave the house, you have to have a camera so you can record any negativity that's head towards. There's no way for anyone to live, is it? In a society like this, I'm coming out with a camera strapped to me, so if anyone abuses me, I've got them on film. That just shows them an intolerance in society that needs to be weeded out. And that's a really interesting point about the benefit fraud. When you realise that it's only 2.4% of incapacity benefit claims are made by disabled people, and less than 1% of disability allowance claims are fraudulent. I mean, disability benefit fraud is so low. Yeah, it's nothing. But according to the tabloids, it's so high.
Well, and the other thing, of course, is that everyone
they can report you anonymously.
Yeah, I know.
They don't have to give a name or anything. They can just report you with no calls, and you get the brown letter through the door. I had it.
But there's no need, because that's what I mean. This just brings it back to this tabloid-fed nonsense. If you look at the stats, disability benefit claim fraud is just so low compared to everything else. It just seems like everyone's a specific, easy target. And talking about the police as well, I mean, obviously, a lot of it comes back to poor police practice at the end of the day. You know, officers have low awareness of disability, the facilities are inaccessible. People with disabilities, they're not taken seriously as credible witnesses. People who have autism or even a CP are seen as drunk because they can't understand what's going on. So there's a big confusion within the Metropolitan Police themselves about what hate crime is and how to deal with disabled people. So you can see the media and the police one side. There's this big juxtaposition.
Do you know what, though? Don't you think that's something? I think that's why I think this is a really important subject to talk about. Is we need ourselves to kind of go right, because I see people online saying kind of, you know, it's really someone was really ableist or horrible, or, you know, it was disability hate, and you kind of go, is it hate or is it ignorance? Because there is a line. Someone doesn't understand and they say things wrong and they're wrong. Like last night, I was in a club. This little guy comes up to me, you know, probably in his mid-20s, and he was actually quite tall, but he was, you know, he was young, which to someone who's celebrating his 56th birthday is anyone under 50. And he came out and he was like, "Oh, I think it's really amazing you're out, and I think you're so brave, and do you know what I mean?" And all that kind of arsey, patronising crap. And I was like, God, I want to hit you, but I can't, because you're not. I felt oppressed, and I felt like, oh, here we go again. But that was ill-informed. And I think that's one of the things that happens is, like, when this group of drug dealers moved in, the police kept going, oh, well, it's just kids. It's just teenagers, isn't it? They're being teenagers. And it's like, yeah, no, they're not. It's not just, yeah, look at you stupid spaz. It's gone from that to something more threatening. And I think that's the thing that we need to get nailed down, because then we can start saying, no, this is when it starts, and this is when you need to act. Because otherwise, I mean, when they said about petrol, we're going to pour petrol through your letterbox and watch you burn. Right, and I rang the police and they said, well, until the petrol's coming through your letterbox, we can't do anything. So I said, so what you mean is we can't interact with this situation until you're running from your house on fire. Well, that's handy. Good to know.
That's logical. Yeah. We got level crossing up here, and we're not going to.
Sorry,
go on, mate. I
was just saying, you know, we've got Sam on here, and I've been following her story over the past. Has it been a month now, Sam, since there was an incident?
Gosh, I think it's been less than that. So yeah, I mean, first of all, Mick, you don't do things by halves, do you, my darling? I'm absolutely frustrated and mortified that you have to experience that. Like you, I am a full-time wheelchair user, and I was, you know, I have a disability. I've got brittle bones, so, you know, anyone kind of coming towards me physically in a threatening manner terrifies me, because it wouldn't just be a hospitalization, it would be, you know, fatal in many respects for me. And that's often why I never retaliate. You know, a lot goes through my mind. I might be small, but I'm extremely mighty, and I am very sharp-witted, and you know, I could bury anyone in a second, you know. But I don't even flip someone the finger, because I am terrified of that split second, someone, particularly when they're intoxicated, someone doing something, and even if they were to do something and, you know, they're absolutely shit-faced, you know, and they you know, only do a punch half the speed of what they would do, again, that would have big consequences for me. But, you know, very similar to you, I think I've always been taunted, even when I was a child. You know, there's the obvious kind of bullying at school, but I'm half German, so I used to spend a lot of time in Germany, and there was a lot of, in our village, from the war, we have quite a lot of kind of they're called Gastarbeiter. So it's like people from Italy or people from Turkey who came to help, you know, Germany after the war. And a lot of them have settled there. And unfortunately, they have a lot of friction with the Germans, very similar to what we have here with other minority groups and ethnic groups, you know, that separation. But I remember the kids used to shout at me across the street, like, "Schwein," "pig," call me pig, and all sorts, you know. And I used to, very, very lucky, I used to travel a lot as a child. But weirdly, like, traveling to most of Europe, you know, is where I actually found that I would be stared at the most or treated differently. I remember in France, someone putting their shopping down to take a good look at me. Went to Amsterdam, and people were stopping and taking pictures of me. And I don't know that for me, someone taking pictures of me is, I find that the most violating. Other than people just laughing or joking, like people stopping. And this was prior to me being any form of public figure and people, see me pop up on telly. This is, just random people wanting to take a look. I've even had that at Gay Pride here. People stopping and taking photos of me. And that makes me feel sick because that they will then show that to people and you will be, the butt of all jokes. But as we were talking about
me,
I have become a meme after the Maltesers advert. I have my very own memes. And do you know what's quite funny with the memes that came out? I did my best to navigate around them and not kind of look at them. I don't Google myself. I'm not, a masochist. I'll never kind of look for these things. But you'll get people who are quote unquote supposed to be your friends, and they'll go, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I've just seen. Look, isn't it horrible, Samantha?" I don't know why I'm doing that accent, but and then they'll just send me the thing that I avoided for 6 months. I'm like, you are just as cruel as someone who kind of has made the memes. But no, the other day I went out. I've slowly, started to get my independence back. I'm very fortunate. I live in central London. I live near Liverpool Street Station, which is a very, very kind of busy, hustly, bustly station. And we get a lot of people coming in and out from Essex, or even, up north. I've seen quite a few stag do's and hen do's, and it's a vibrant place to be. And I only go there, one, because it's 5 minutes from my home and I can take my power wheelchair and I've navigated a route that has good drop curbs and I won't get stuck. And two, I know there's an accessible bathroom there because it's all been, the plaza has all been kind of all new, done. I don't go there because I enjoy watching drunkards, kind of have their, just like act like idiots in the street. So I go there quite regularly, meet up with friends. And the last time I went, I have been twice actually, but then the last time I saw a really big group of intoxicated youngsters, and I say youngsters, probably in the mid-20s, and my friend was chatting away to me, and all of a sudden, all I thought was, and I didn't think, they're going to look at me or stare at me, I just thought, oh crap, I need to get past them with my power chair, and all it takes is for one person to push one person, they fall on me. So, when you're a wheelchair user, also when you have brittle bones, you're like on high edge all the time, going, oh my God, risk assessment. Oh, quick, get out of the way. It's like a, what's it called? Like a computer game, like dodging people. So I was just kind of trying to navigate past them. And then I clocked one of the lads laugh at me, then tap the other lad on the shoulder. Then it was a bit like, dominoes. They all kind of tapped each other and then they all turned around and started laughing. My friend was a bit oblivious to this because he was like wrapped up in his own little conversation to me. Little did he know I wasn't listening to him. And as soon as I saw them all kind of laughing, part of me was like, just flip them the V's or whatever. But I couldn't. I thought I was angry because I thought you just made me feel embarrassed of who I am. And I turned and I looked the other way and I went red. And I even thought, oh my God, I hope my friend hasn't seen that. I thought it wasn't even the act of making fun out of me because, they're just wankers and I probably earn more money than they do in a whole fucking year and then, that I do in a week. So screw them, not that money's everything in the world, but you know what I mean? I've got a very, very successful, happy life. So that doesn't really niggle me anymore because I feel so content with who I am and where I am. But it put a downer on the night and it made you mentioned it, Mik, and this is PTSD. It triggered something from my past, and I don't know about you. When someone does something like that to you, for me, it's not about the act, it's about the people around you validating what just happened. And so many times people have been whispering about me, people have laughed at me, people have mocked me, and I've said to my friends, not that I want to go, you know, want them to go over and beat the crap out of them, but I've said, oh my God, did you see that? And so many times people have gone, you're imagining it.
Yeah.
Don't be
Really?
You
annoying.
know what? I think that's the big one about it. I think that isn't talked about is that we aren't believed. Because I think one of the things is that for everybody that would do it, there's someone who couldn't imagine doing it.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, if I can't imagine anyone doing that because I think you know, I wouldn't do it. And so you're like, well, no, we're not making this stuff up.
Yeah.
You know, we face exactly the same problems as any other minority. And you know, people don't believe that you can hate disabled people, but you can, right? And people do. And you know, there is a you know, like you're saying, when people look at you and go, oh, look at that freak, and you're like, right, that's only a short step. That's no different from saying, look at that black person, look at that gay person. It's the same othering. And but like, it's funny because I used to hang around with Julie Fernandez, who also has brittle bones, and she used to say exactly the same thing. We'd go clubbing, and she'd be like, I don't want to go on the dance floor because I don't know if someone might grab me or fall on me or hug me. And like a hug for you is a hug. A hug for me could be, you know, 6 months in hospital or worse. And it's you know, it's a load of stuff that is why we need to confront it. Because
I mean, how much do we think is fueled by the media? With all
I know that I know that when these kids started on me, it was around the time that all of this scrounger vision started. And the thing that bugged them was they thought it was unfair that I got a free car. So they kept smashing it up. And it cost me, you know, 150 quid excess. All the wing mirrors went, all the windows went. I'd get it all fixed, put it back outside, it'd go again. And that was where it started. I mean, that in itself should have been enough to get the police involved. But
I think the reason why, you know, you've got this media spiral and they kind of propaganda of, you know, benefit scroungers, you know, I would happily give up my benefits. And someone actually commented on something the other day, went, yeah, but you get all these like free stuff and provisions, you know. I said, I will happily give up my 20% off freaking rail card if I could actually get on the underground whenever I wanted to, you know, like you know, the media likes to make us look like the baddies because actually they don't want to put their hands up and go, society is screwed. We're not doing enough. Shame on us. So we're going to build a lie.
This is why being the old duffer who was disabled, you know, like long ago in the ancient history where things were black and white. Because I remember when a lot of these benefits were first introduced, right? And the whole story around them was, right, we're going to give attendance allowance so that people that need extra support it doesn't cost the NHS extra money. So it's cheaper to give them a little bit of money to pay for someone to, let's say, buy extra socks because they wear them out, or trousers, or help someone on, you know, do little things for them. And then the mobility allowance is because we just can't afford to make the whole network, the public transport system accessible. So we'll give them a bit of money, they can spend it on a cab, or we used to have a little blue bubble car, you know, the invalid carriage. That's unsafe. So we're going to start a thing called Motability, and they can hire a car off this company with this money, and then that way they can get around, and it means that we don't have to spend an absolute fortune on making the world accessible. And kind of that's what the argument was, and everyone was like, that's brilliant. And I remember for years people would go, you need that stuff, you know, it's leveling the playing field, it's really good you get that orange badge, you need that's really important. And then all of a sudden people started nicking them, and you're like, when the bloody hell did that happen? And it was like that. It was just really weird. 1 minute, people wouldn't park in your bay. The next minute, you were being told to piss off. It's all right for you with your blue badge. I'm parking here. I'm only being here 5 minutes. And it wasn't as recent as people think. You know, it was sort of the middle 90s.
But what was the catalyst?
Well, annoyingly and sadly to say, one of the big ones was, and people forget this, that Tony Blair's government decided to go after us all for our benefits. And I was working on the BBC at the time, and they started reassessing everyone and trying to get everyone off it. And luckily, the show we were doing, From the Edge, we reported on 3 or 4 cases where people's lives were destroyed by this process. And it meant that the public came on board and went, this is terrible, we've got to undo this. But it started that dialogue, that idea that there was all this money being paid out to us that somehow the government could claw back. And I'm afraid that when the government changed, they came back with a vengeance. And I think from that time, the media had started, like we said, you know, all this benefit scrounger telly rubbish. and we were just caught in the crossfires, and that's when it really kicked off. And no matter what you tried, you couldn't argue with people. So much so that even my own brother has said to me at one point, "It's all right for you, your free house, your free car, and your loads of benefits." Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you know what I get, mate. You're my brother. So if even they had bought into it, then you're in trouble.
A question for Dan. Dan, being our political expert, so to speak, because we've seen him beating up Tories on the TV. How much of this media-fueled hate campaign is pushed by the government, do you think, to enable them to make cuts and changes to our benefits?
Of course it's enabled. I mean, a lot of people accuse me of being paranoid, but when you consider a lot of people in the media are peers or donators to certain political parties, you have lords and stuff like that. Even now, you've got Boris Johnson trying to get, I forgot what it is it Paul Dacre of the Daily Mail in the top at the BBC. They're trying to get Jess Braemar, who is a wonderful person from the Huffington Post. They're trying to out her because apparently she's got left-wing views, which don't sit right with the BBC in general. And as much as I love the BBC, you can see a lot of these media companies are having a lot of political lines feed through. Do you see what I mean? In order to correspond, to keep their funding, Channel 4 is coming under attack as well. So you can see a lot of these companies are starting to toe the line, really, starting to, instead of proper journalism we used to have, it's more like reporting without digging deeper. So, of course, there's a big correlation between government and media, and there always has been, but it's got worse lately, got a lot worse lately, where you can see, obviously, with the £20 coming back off PIP now, and no one's really kicking up a fuss about it because, obviously, these people can go out and get a job at a place where obviously there's no access and they can't go in to get a job. So yeah, the correlation is there. People need to see what's going on because disabled people have always been pillared and are being accused of benefit scroungers, and it's always been media fed. If you look at the history of things, as soon as the government makes a decision, you will see that enacted slowly through the media. I mean, last week we had that BBC Panorama documentary, I think it was on disabled people. I can't think what the youth terminology is called when you've got hidden disability and you go on the media and you talk on TikTok, things like that. I can't
Influencers.
So it was
so there it happened again. Another attack on disabled people. So it's constantly there. And then you got the other side of it, which is always the pity porn side of it. So you've always got the two barriers of disgust at disability. Or look, let's raise them some money. So of course, people viewing don't see anything in between. So they're stuck between those things. So they've got one view or the other, which both equate to the same thing.
This is it. And I think I get, after the Maltese advert, I got, kind of really, really trolled. And it kind of shocked me because I always surround myself with people that lift me up. And naively, I didn't think as a grown adult that I would be trolled so heinously online. And, a lot of people want to talk about that still today, which, it has its time and place, obviously. And people go, well, what do you think the cause is? And whenever I say this, and I'm not doing this to be self-indulgent or anything, I say it's because I am a successful disabled woman, and that intimidates people. And exactly what you just said, you're inspirational because you don't want to kill yourself every day, or you're pitying children's in need. So if you kind of say I'm neither of those things, I'm a businesswoman, I'm strong, I'm independent, etc. Yes, my body fails me from time to time. Yes, I need additional support, but let's face it, who doesn't need support? We all had mothers and fathers that wiped our asses when we were children. That's not exclusive to disabled people. Everyone needs help. And I think that is one of the reasons why I got trolled. People were jealous. But isn't it funny, whenever I say that, people go and look at me and go, and they don't have to say anything. It's that whole, why would they be jealous?
Yep.
Because again, it's that ingrained systemic vision. Disabled people, like, why would you want to? I don't want to be disabled. I'd rather die than be disabled. And I'm sure we've all heard that or experienced that comment. So I think it's really funny with the emergence of online media, TikTok. I mean, I'm 35 now. I feel like a grandma in comparison with all these online influencers and stuff. God help you three. But it's a different.
Thanks for that, Sam. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. But it is a different culture, and good going to them all. They're all amazing. They're all kind of trailblazers in their own right. But I think that people are ready for it because the media still gets it so wrong on how they depict disabled people. And it's funny because I, work closely with broadcasts, etc., and try and get diversity, or authentic representation. And we've still got a long way to go. But until we really get a shift where we see disabled people, on a TV program where they're a doctor or a teacher. FYI, I used to be a teacher, so it's not too far of a reach, But you know what I mean? I think that's what it is, because people genuinely, a little bit like the guy that came up to you last night, Mick, and said, "Oh, I think it's great that you're out there. I've had that more times than hot dinners." Yeah. But until they start seeing people how they really are, we're gonna get those comments. And when they see someone like me succeeding, but also might be getting a free car or whatever, of course that's gonna annoy people.
Yeah, because you don't fit into that stereotypical thing. You when you're a successful person like you are, you suddenly attacked what they've learned. No, you can't be successful because you're needing charity all the time, or you're on benefits. No, that's not what I've been told. So that can't be right. So I have to be jealous at you. Or I have to accuse you of being wrong, Sam. And that's real. I mean, Ruth Maley, do you remember? She had it the other week when she got out. The taxi driver refused to give her wheelchair. It's just intolerable. I mean, but Zek, what's been your experience? Because you're a newbie wheelchair as a user, right? What's been your experience of this then?
As I say, I have been really quite very lucky. I mean, I don't like, because of my anxiety, I'm not out in the world a lot. But when I do go out, I get a mix of stares and looks to people leaping out my way, because
I wish they leapt out of my way.
21 stone coming down the corridor in a wheelchair is a bit terrifying, I guess. Although they don't need to give me 12-foot room. But I've had one. I crossed the road. I told you about that, and somebody shouted out "effing cripple," and I just stopped in the middle of the crossing and said, "Get out!" And his windows went up. I'm lucky. I've got a look. I don't feel like that, and I think partly, since I first fell ill in '96, I had the shaved head first of all, and that my look is maybe defensive. It's maybe armor. I mean, looking into myself deeply, there may be part of it that is because I don't feel like that inside. I feel pretty weak, and I found that the most difficult thing, feeling weak. I used to stand 6'4" tall, and then all of a sudden,
It's funny because before we went live, Sam was saying about there is a difference between what it's like to be a male and female. And I know for a fact that most people looked at me and went, motorbike. And I bet they're exactly the same to Zek, right? See you in a wheelchair, motorbike accident. So loads of people go, well, you deserve it. It's your own stupid fault, right? But loads of people were just like, oh, well, you're just a biker. And it was, so then when you went, no, it's cancer. What? And so there's a whole strength thing.
Or Afghanistan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the other one was, so what were you in Gulf War One? No. So yeah, and
it's funny because whenever I get attacked, 99.9% of it's by men, and most of it is some sort of derogatory sexual comment.
Yep.
And I find that funny as well. And it's this again, the perception of, because I do like, I mean, you can't tell tonight because I'm not showing my face, and God help us all if I did. But normal circumstances, I do look pretty presentable. I like my fashion. I like my makeup. I like to look the best version of who I want to be. And I used to work at the Box in Soho and be all sexy lingerie and all sorts of stuff. And, I've got a very central side to me, and I don't hold back when I go out. And I think it's really, really funny that a lot of the taunting that I get are, jokes like, well, can you imagine effing her? Can you imagine, oh, look, midget, what would you do to her? Or, and it's really weird. Again, with dating, I really struggle with dating because I do get a lot of these microaggressions and discrimination that spill out onto dating sites and things like that. But then all the people that I've had sexual relationships with, it's like, I've always felt a little bit like, oh, the dirty little secret. Even back at school, I had boyfriends, but we couldn't tell anyone. We could just hold hands near, behind the bins type thing. And I think even now as a grown woman, I still feel the effects of that. They make fun out of me because I'm small and, joke to their friends about having relationships with me and use that as a kind of joke. But behind closed curtains, I've never really had that issue, and that's why, you know, I don't kind of have one night stands anymore or anything like that, because it did get to a point where I felt like I was like someone's dirty little secret. Like, we'll screw the cripple behind the closed doors, but we won't, you know, approach her in a bar. We won't, you know, kind of sit with her in public.
So it's funny, right? Because you know, when I was younger and on telly, I used to hang around with Julie and hang around with Sophie and all people, not Sophie, Shannon and all, you know, stunning, beautiful disabled women, right? And loads of my mates would kind of be a bit weird around them, and then kind of go, God, I really fancy her. What do I say? And I said, well, what do you say to anyone else?
Yeah.
And it was sort of, and I really started to notice that one of the things was, as a bloke, girls might say to each other, oh, what are you going out with him for? But there's almost a kind of Florence Nightingale, I'm going to care for him, you know, he's my broken action man kind of thing. Whereas blokes are just like, all my mates are going to laugh at me, so I'm just having none of it. And I think that that's a whole other load of stuff. And it's funny because on the gay scene, I found loads of my gay mates were like, no one wants to go out with me. And then I'd go out on the gay scene. And because they're so into bodies, my body's all right, I'm just in a wheelchair, you have to beat them off with a stick. And it was, and yet a lot of my lesbian friends that were disabled had, what kind of stick? They enjoyed being beaten with a stick. Well, go into that.
You did say stick, didn't you?
I did say stick. Yeah, it was a stick with an S and not with a D. Anyway, so, but loads of my lesbian friends had no trouble at all. And again, it was that idea around women are caring and men aren't. And there's so much to unpack around what we throw up in the face of society. That we should be making society question itself. I mean, you've got all the cultural stuff. You know, lots of my friends from different cultures have a whole other load of intersectional discrimination. You know, religion brings stuff saying, you know, well, you're deserving it because you don't believe or you haven't prayed hard enough. And all of that feeds into being picked on as well. And people believing that they have the right to come up to you and just lay their hands on you because they're going to make you walk again or see. And you're like, yeah, okay. Do you know what I mean? And I think that there is so much to unpack, and I think it's why this conversation is so important, because we are the unspoken ism, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? Everyone else they talk about, and there's a load of stuff that we experience that, like we said, people just go, no, that can't happen, can it? Really?
Exactly. Well, it's that disability perception gap, isn't it? And that is so rife, you know. It's like, oh well, but everything's all right now, isn't it? Everything's right. Everywhere has to be accessible. You know, you've got the Paralympics. You know, I get so many people like now going, yeah, but I see loads of people like you on telly. And I'm like, do you know? Do you?
No.
Do you know?
No, not at all. And if they are, they're played by someone else.
Yeah.
Usually, this time in the show is when we normally go to each person and we say, what tips and advice have you got? But I don't think there are any tips and advice. So what I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start with Dan, is what can we do? Is there anything we can do to improve the perception of disabled people and to try and stop this hate?
To be fair, I don't think the answer lies with us, because as like Mik's always saying, since the Disability Act came in 25 years ago, everyone's been constantly shouting ever since, and no one's ever picked it up. So I think as much as we shout, it's just not going to. It's got to happen culturally. It's got to happen from the top down. The problem with the society we have is that if you're disabled, you're not seen as a productive individual by the state and the system, whereas you're not going to be out there. They assume because you're disabled, you're not going to be out there working, grinding the relentless wheels of industry, bringing in taxes, paying and stuff. So they're just going to chuck you a little bit of benefit and get everyone to despise you, which is just a bit easier. So that's where it's all got to change. People have got to educate themselves. That's the biggest thing. It frustrates me so much that people refuse to go out and educate themselves or engage in conversation with disabled people. There's nothing to be scared of. You're not going to catch cerebral palsy. With Emily, you're not going to catch spina bifida. If you talk to people, you'll understand people. But do your homework, because that's the only way it's going to change, from the top down and by people investigating and not believing every single thing they read and hear. People need to be individuals, and it frustrates me all the time. We're lucky. Emily's never had any hate crime, nothing. She's had people come up, say they're going to pray for her or try and put their hands on her, but she always just flips a bird at them because
I love Emily.
She's very lucky as a girl. She's been brought up to be really confident, not just by us as a family, but by Mik as well. Mik's had some wonderful conversations with her that she's very, very happy confident. So when it does happen, she's got that guile to go against it. But I'm hoping this won't happen. I'm hoping she won't grow up with this awful, negative government media stereotype driven attitude still embedded. People need to learn and do it for themselves. Lecture over.
Sam?
Sam,
what do we
yeah,
do?
well, I was going to say, you can't catch brittle bones from me. You might be able to catch chlamydia, but I'll need to go to what's that itching? No, I'm joking. Also, can I please apologise for my potty mouth? I actually just looked at the clock. I was like, wow, it's really still quite early. So I do apologise if anyone's been offended by my dirty mouth, but I can't help it.
No one tunes into this show for right-wing politics or a lack of swearing, that's for sure.
I think that, you know, for me, I obviously echo everything that Dan has said. You know, the onus needs to be taken away from disabled people, and there needs to be a cultural shift. However, in the meantime, for me, I wish, looking back, I had the confidence to safeguard myself in the sense of, like you said, it's not normally the act, it's the aftermath of not being believed. And that can be, I've lost friends over that, you know, and that can be more demoralizing and humiliating than people calling you a cripple in the street. So for me, I think, you know, me having the confidence and saying to my friends, actually, you not believing me has hurt more than them saying that to me. And I want to know why you don't believe me, because I am not someone to fabricate things of this gravitas, you know. And I think being able to have that open conversation with friends, family that are dismissive, and even if they're dismissive because they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation, you know, actually say, well, tough crap, you need to have that conversation because I'm hurting right now. And like I said, that the other day or the other week when it was, literally it triggered something that I can remember from one of my first times in London 10 years ago. And that says a lot, doesn't it? That I can remember, I remember where I was, who I was with, and him not believing me, my friend not believing me. Safe to say, we are no longer friends anymore.
Mick, words, wisdom.
Talking from experience of it happening and getting quite bad, soon as it starts, start recording it and start telling people about it, right? Because if you let it go and it escalates, you can't say, well, it started here and it's got to here. It suddenly appears like it started here, and people tend to go, oh, well, let's see if it goes away. And you're like, yeah, but it's already been going on for a year and it's just got worse to the point where I'm scared. So as soon as it happens, record it, write it down. Or if it's verbal or something from neighbors, record it, or, you know, audio record it, video record it, and tell everybody. And also don't be ashamed of it happening. You know, no one can be, you know, I was a famous TV presenter, gobshite, mouthy, punk rock cripple. And, you know, within a space of 2.5 years, we were turned, my wife and I were turned into like terrified house people trapped at home. We had a party one night and like loads of my mates got beaten up. One got put in hospital, you know, by these people that, you know, they were a bunch of real shit. And there you go, more swearing, folks. So, you know, and also go and shout about it. If it happens to you, like, you got the police, do nothing, go to press, go everywhere, shout about it, because there will be someone, you know, there's wonderful people like Francis Ryan and Nikki Fox who will tell your story. Do you know what I mean? There's the Huffington Post. If you go to them and say, look, this is happening to me, they'll help you write it down and you can prove it. Because what tends to happen is when you don't get any support, you shrink and you hide and you just think, right, this is something I've got to cope with on my own. And you find you ask your family and they're bloody useless. So actually you need to go out and go to your authority. Go, you know, like the Housing Association should have said to the people, you know, the kids that were living under the same housing association, if you do any more, you're out. Not, I shouldn't have had to go. They should have been gone. Yes. But I think that's it, because we didn't use the right roads. So I think that's it. But it, you know, all this education and that's fine. We live in a very weird situation now where people go online and educate themselves with bollocks. So we know that it's up to the media to rethink. Sophie Morgan's article in the Times recently, all about, you know, sort of challenging. The language was a bit, but the actual story was really important. And I think we just need more of that. We need people to see it isn't a bad thing, but also to see the truth, you know, that you can be successful, but if you're not, it's not a bad thing. If you never get out of bed, you can still have a nice life. And it's not, you know, like you said, tragedy and, you know, you're better off dead or Paralympian superhero. But I don't know. If all else fails, I think I should start making mountable submachine guns, and then we'd be all right.
I think Emily's got it all sorted. Emily's got it sorted. She's now got pump bracelets Mick with spikes on.
Oh, I used to have them too, yeah, and I had them on my boots. I once got barred from a nightclub because they said you can't come in with them because you've got studs on your boots. And I said, well, what do you think I'm going to do? Kick someone? Although I will actually say that another night when there was a bit of a fight going on, I did grab someone, push their face into my boots. So, correct.
Probably got rid of their acne, but never mind. Well done, Mick.
Anyway, yes, I'll probably get a knock on the door now.
In TV and films, proper representation. You know, like Liz Carr on Silent Witness was wonderful, wasn't it? To see somebody who's genuinely disabled on TV absolutely killing it. I mean, it was brilliant.
And what I loved about Liz's character, hardly ever was it mentioned about her being disabled. She was just Liz Carr.
I know.
So refreshing.
See, I think we're going to overrun now. We always do. I think that one of the things is we've become obsessed with ignoring it. Oh, let's have a story where we don't talk about it, and it's not really important. There'll be one special where she does a show about. I used to work on a show that was about being disabled. Every week we talked about it. We made shows about what you could do, where you could go, the benefits you got, what it was really like, good and bad, right? And that was watched by millions of people, disabled and not. And that's missing. We now make either programs where we don't talk about it or programs where we talk about it for non-disabled people. And it's like, hello, I'm going to tell you what it's like to have had cancer and now be paralyzed. But that's bollocks. What you want is a show for us that they watch. And it's hugely missing, so that Emily can watch it and go, right, how do you make a punk jacket if you're in a wheelchair? You know, she didn't have to, you know, she didn't have to text or WhatsApp some stupid old sod that her dad knows, right? Going, how do I do a punk jacket? There should be a whole show where a young punk girl showing out. Do you know what I mean? And and I think that that's missing, and that was part of what helped because people saw a whole picture. It wasn't Paralympian or here's a sad story about a boy with half a brain, or do you know what I mean? It was rounded. You could have a show about skiing and benefits and driving, and you know, then you'd meet a musician, and then a comedian would tell a joke, and then you'd end. And that was the show. I think that's really missed, and I really missed From the Edge. And I think that there's a huge gap in the media that should be filled by something new. There's so much great talent out there. I don't get why it isn't. But I think that's me on my high horse.
No, there should be. That show is waiting to be done. So I think a commission from the four of us here is on its way, because you're right. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, is there? It's terrible.
We need brace across the world. We need brace across London for wheelchair users. It'll take us long.
Bloody Tanny Gray would win anyway. She always does. Although, you know, now she's proper political, so that'd be one of these new young'uns, doesn't it? You know,
it'd be Emily with a new wheelchair attachment. That's what it'd be.
I don't know any of their names, of course. The Paralympics are starting soon. Do we know? No, I don't even know.
No. It'd be good, though, if the Paralympics started and the Paralympians themselves actually got up on a platform and made these sort of discussions.
You mean that'd be good. Kind of like that when they won the medals?
Yeah, I agree. Something, didn't we? No. From the Paralympic Committee, they actually spoke out, didn't they, recently, I think?
Depends which
one. I didn't hear that.
You've got the We Are 15 campaign. That's quite good. But then you've got the what words to use from the International Paralympic Committee, but were completely wrong. Because I think language is really important. It's where it starts. You start getting bullied by words, and then it becomes physical. No one just goes up to you and punches you straight away. They call you a name. And so that's why I think language is important. But
you haven't met Big Bert from Southend. No words, mate. You'll just get a smack.
you always remind me of the guitarist from ZZ Top. So yeah, exactly.
Well, every girl's crazy about a sharp dressed man.
Too right, mate.
Oh, you remembered that?
No, I didn't remember that.
And that is that. We've run
yes, that better be it, really. Otherwise, we'll do that thing of just going on forever, won't we?
Talk for hours.
talk about for ages. Thank you, Sam, for coming on and
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sam. Wonderful, wonderful human being that you are.
Hope you heal up soon, Sam.
Yeah. Well, I'll be fine. You know, I just need to get some rest. My body's very good at telling me when my bone density is low, and I didn't listen to it. So shame on me, really. But I'll be fine. I've got my 2 Sphinx cats to look after me. Yeah, I've actually been letting them sleep with me at night. So that's it. It's going to be an absolute nightmare now trying to get them into the living room tonight to lock them away. Wish me luck. I feel like I'm a proper cat mum.
Good luck to Sam trying to lock her pussy away. And
oh my goodness, it doesn't happen often.
Oh my God!
On that note, I'm up.
And who is leading next time? Who's up next as we cycle around the leading? It's Dan. We will see you in 2 weeks' time on Sunday at 6 p.m. I'm going to click end. Say goodbye, folks.
Bye, folks.
Live long and prosper, folks.
Bye, everyone.
And that one. And
Come on, Mick.